Hello, welcome back to Model Kit Stuff. My name is Jason and this is episode 5 of our Scharnhorst build, and you're getting a sneak peek of where I'm up to. Now, during the course of this video, you're going to see how I tackle adding the sea chests, and we're going to start working on the forecastle. There's a lot to do, and the more you look at it, the more there is to do, unfortunately. But we need to do that now because we've got to also sort out these hose pipes, and to do that we need the deck in place. So all will become clear during the course of the build. Now, just a reminder, this is a buddy build, so do check out Nigel at Nigel's Modelling Bench, who is also building the Scharnhorst. I will leave a link in the text below the video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you watch the video and you enjoy it, please hit the like button. It helps other people who might be interested in watching this find it. So without further ado, I guess we should get on with the build. Okay, we're looking at putting the sea chests in right now, and I've done the first one just to prove the process to myself. These need to be countersunk, so if you're using this this set on the Bismarck, then some of these have to be countersunk and others stick on the surface. And the ones that we're using on the Scharnhorst need to be countersunk, of course. Yeah. So what I've basically done, if I just talk you through the process, we've taken them off the fret, cleaned up the sides, made sure they're nice and smooth, and then I've just rolled over them very lightly, actually with my knife handle, just to put a curve into them. And then they've been placed on the hull after having measured out its position and then drawn around it. So that's my basic process for positioning. So we marked out this one first, and you can see this line here that marks the bottom corner there, which is the position, and then it's kept straight in line with this, and then we measured the distance from the outside corner to that inside corner there, and that marked out that one, and then the distance from that outside corner to that corner to that edge there, and then you drop it down about a millimetre, well, a little bit more. I can't remember, millimetre and a half, something like that. And then you drop that down, and then you can measure the distance from there using the imagery. I've used page 96 in the Anatomy of the Ship book for positioning these, which has good pictures of the sides and underneath of the hull. And like I say, they don't show any of these other grills being used at all. So I don't know whether that means that we just don't know how they were positioned or what that means, but yeah. So the next job is to get these countersunk. So I'm going to show you how I'm tackling that. And I'm basically doing it in two ways. I'm milling it out slightly using this milling tool here, which has a nice bladed end. You can also do it with something like one of these diamond tool milling edges, but it takes quite a bit of time if you're just using one of these smaller ones, or of course you can use the sort of stone-like ones. Again, it's all about time. These are finer than this. This has got a sort of a cutting blade. If I bring that up to you, you can see it's got cutting edge on the top. And I've actually used that top edge so much more than the side. So yeah, we're going to mill it out, which basically roughs it out, and then we're going to go in with chisels to smarten it up. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is go around with a wider chisel than this and just mark out the edge, which will help when milling. So let's do that first. Right, so using as wide a chisel as I've got, I'm just going to go and gently mark out the edges where we've drawn around it. So ultimately, we want to countersink this so that we're only going the depth of the photo etch, which is tricky. And it doesn't matter if you go a bit deeper, but you've got to try and get the outside edge of the photo etch flush with your hull. So it's not a really easy operation, to be honest, and it's very easy to go too far. So yeah, we will do our best. And then what I've done with the one that you can see has already been installed is we then filled the gaps with super glue, and when we come to prime it, we'll see how good a job of that we've done, because it's a little bit difficult to see even with my magnifying glasses on. When it's all the same colour, that'll give us a much better idea. Right, so that should help. So the idea of marking out the edges is I should hopefully feel through the tool a difference, a little bit of resistance. It's only, you're going to be able to go outside of that edge, definitely. But when you're getting close to it and you can see it and you can feel it, it just helps a little bit. Right, so let's get this on. This is going to be running at its slowest setting. I've got it on a flexi line, so I've got lots and lots of manipulation. It's also a lot lighter, so get less fatigue. Off we go. So that's as close into the edges as I can go because of the shape and size of it. So we can go in with a much smaller tool and get right up to the edges, but to be honest, it's no quicker than going in with our chisels. So we'll start with the wider chisel, and then we can tidy up with the smaller chisel. And what we're going to do is just go along that edge. We've taken down the material in the middle now, so we can just go in and slowly take material away. And if you do go outside of the edge, it's not the end of the world. We can just fill it, but yeah. But hopefully the little lines that we marked out will help the there we go, help the chisel to come to a stop. There we go. So I can feel that edge there ever so slightly. If we're going with our small one now, I'm doing this left-handed so you can see. So I hope you appreciate the effort I'm putting in to you being able to see what I'm doing. There we go. And it's just a matter of carefully plucking away at it until we've got it right. And of course, when you're doing it with a chisel like this, you've got so much more control. Once we've got the edges out, we can go around and get the depth right. But first of all, I want to just be in a position to go, yeah, okay, that's all good now. We've roughed it out. There you go. You can see it's quite time consuming, but this way gives you so much more control. So I'm using the back of the chisel here to just scrape. And what that does is it evens out all the lumpiness from the milling and gives us a smoother surface, so that what we don't want is little lumps in the middle of this pushing out the photo etch so it doesn't sit properly. So you get the general idea. I'm going to carry on doing that, and then I'll come back to you when it's done. Okay, I think we have got this where we want it to be, so I'm just about to dry fit it. So let's get all this out of the way. So we need it to be nice and flush. There we go. That's, yeah. I can push my finger over that, and I'm not feeling a big step up in either direction, which means that the photo etch isn't catching my finger, and the plastic's not catching my finger. So that's taken me around about 20 minutes, I think, thereabouts, maybe a little longer, but not much. And so we've got another 2 to do on this side, and another one to do, another 2 on the other side. But we do need to glue this in now, so let's have a look at that next. What have I done with my... There we go. So what we'll do is we'll glue in 2 edges and then put glue in along the other edges. So I'm going to do this edge and the top edge. So this is a medium setting glue that's been out for a little while, so it's almost gone gel-like. There we go. And that's just tacking it in place. So I'm actually going to put some fresh glue out. So I'm just going to change my top. There we go. My nozzle has managed to glue itself inside the cap and won't come out. And I do have a recap, but this glue is so close to being finished that I don't actually want to do that. Right, there we go. So just running the medium CA into the gap. And that's going to fill it, but what we'll also do is when we're filling portholes and what have you, we'll run some milli put in here and sand it back. Away there. It doesn't matter that it's a bit rough. All that does is remind us that we've got a little bit of tidy up to do. Now I have managed to damage the edge of that, but again, it's just a sanding job. And I'm going to sand along this edge anyway, just to sharpen it up anyway, so it'll get tidied up at that point. So that's that one in. I've been a bit less tidy on that one than I was on that one, to be honest. That's because the camera's rolling. It's the way it always works. But it's in and it's flush. And yeah, that's so much better than not doing it, isn't it? So yeah, I'm going to crack on and do these others. I won't do those on cameras for speed. So I'll come back to you when they are done and what a difference it makes. Just doing 1 or 2 relatively easy modifications. These are things that they look more difficult than they are, and you should really have a go. If you sort of think, oh, I could never do that, you don't know. Never say never. Have a go, because there's nothing that you can't correct and take back. So if you do this and you make a mess of it and you've end up with holes in it and stuff like that, don't worry about it. You can just fill it and sand it flush, and no one will ever know. So in the worst case, you can take it back to how it originally was. So yeah, let's crack on and get this done, and then we'll have a look at what we've got to do next. Right, so our next task is to sort out what happens between these two. So there is actually a raised lump. That would create turbulence, and I guess that's done on purpose to help these scoop water up. I don't really know. I'm using some 0.25 card. I think that's going to be sufficient. I'm going to cut it out and see anyway. So first thing is I need to cut out a little square so we've got something we can work with. Right, so we need to make sure that we are wider than what we need, because we're going to sort of draw it out. So, and a bit deeper. Okay, so that's much bigger than we need. I can probably cut that down a little bit. Actually, we'll take a bit off, put that in my little drawer. We won't waste that. And then what I'm going to do is get a bit of tape and just tack it on. So when I've unmasked something, I always keep my tape because it's handy for these little jobs rather than using virgin tape. So I was sort of hoping I'd be able to see through it a little bit, but that's not the case. So that's not going to work. Darn it. Right, so it needs to be this shape here, but it also needs to be higher. Comes up to about there and then goes down to the bottom. Okay, right. I think the best way is to get a little bit of paper and trace the shape out. Okay, so we successfully managed to trace it out. I've used a bit of baking parchment actually. Anything that you can see through to draw is perfect. And then we taped it onto the plastic card, and we've been able to cut out the shape that we need. It's actually that way around. I'm going to mark it actually, so I remember what is the front face. There we go. So that's been cut out. So the next thing is to glue it in, and I'm going to use some plastic magic for that. Now, obviously, it's not going to conform to the shape of the hull as it currently is. So we're going to do this in 2 stages and glue the bottom in and then glue the top in. It's just a matter of holding it down, holding it in place. So I'm going to put it in place, and I'm just going to hold it there. I need to be able to see what I'm doing though, so I'm not going to use my fingers to hold it in. There we go. Just run some glue down there. Give it a sec. Alright, we'll just hold that against the hull for a sec. This thin plastic card takes moments to grab, so it's nice and easy. The difficulty is it can melt if you're not careful. There we go. Don't mind if we get some bubbling, we can clean it up. There we go. So that is our raised section in. So 0.25 card. I think that's worked a treat. What I also think is it's not quite straight. So when it's all dried, we'll just take a rule and trim this end to strain it up a little bit in line with the edge of these 2 grills. So yeah, happy with that. That completes that section of sea chest. So I can move on and do these ones now. So there are a number of weld seams that are particularly visible, especially around the bow area. I think there's 1 or 2 around the stern, but I've yet to check out reference pictures of the stern. And I want to try and put these in. So there's different ways of doing weld seams, but on something of this scale, it's got to be really subtle. So what I'm doing is I'm going to attempt to put a weld seam in using Mr. Surfacer. So this is the 500 here, so the thicker one. And what I've got is a couple of strips of masking tape. And what we're going to do, you can see this, I've left a gap. And what we are going to do is run some Mr. Surfacer along the gap, let it dry, remove the masking tape, and hopefully that'll leave us a tiny ridge which will just be visible when we paint it. So that's the general idea. So we're going to do that now. We're just going to brush it on. I've got a brush here that I use for Mr. Surfacer, and it goes rock hard when you finish with it, but then you can see as soon as you get it back in the Mr. Surfacer, it comes to life again. So let's have a go. Now we don't need to build it up to the thickness of the masking tape particularly. We just need to have covered the gap, because whatever we leave will be above the surface level of the model, obviously. And the beauty is, if we don't like the effect or it doesn't come out so well, we can just sand it away. And I do want to sort of make sure it's relatively even. You can see it's already starting to dry there. There we go. So we'll give that a moment or two just to start really setting and getting a skin on it. And then we can whip this off before it's too hard, because what we don't want is it breaking away. So there you go. That's all there is to doing a weld line, hopefully. Right, to be able to progress further down with the hull modifications, I need to be able to install the forecastle, the foredeck, the bow deck, whatever you want to call it. I need to install this. I need to work through the hose pipe openings here and correct them. There is so much to do on this. The more you look at this, the more you find wrong with the deck. So first of all, let's start with the alterations that the Mark 1 set has us do. So in this image here, so this is page 4, and they highlight in orange the things to remove. And they've made a mistake because they're asking you to remove the 2 skylights. But actually all you want to do is remove the skylight openings. As we can see here on page 6, they don't move the skylights, and just to be doubly sure, they've got cutouts in their deck for the skylights. So that's something to be mindful of, but we can see that everything else that they're asking us to remove, which is namely the position of the capstans and the bonnets, is correct. So the bonnets are terrible basic things, and we've got some 3D printed resin we can use to replace that. So that's all good. But Trumpeter have given us 1 or 2 other issues that MK1 have not noticed. Firstly, what Trumpeter have done is they've recessed this area here, and we've got a flat plate area, then we've got the cutout for the hose pipe, and they have the anchor sitting on the top of that. That's wrong in more ways than one. So firstly, this area here should actually be built up to the height of this stepped deck. So we can see that the deck is flat. It's easier to actually see on here. We've got the flat deck here, and then this blank area has a deck that goes on top. And that's for the anchor chains to go along. It gives the deck a bit more protection from the anchor chain. Well, actually, this steel deck area should be at the same height as the raised wooden deck, which makes much more sense. You've not got chain dragging against a wooden lip that's eventually going to get pretty worn out and broken up and what have you. So as I look at pictures, we can see that at the height, this is the height of this raised area, and this deck goes below, and they actually butt up slightly lower, so there is a step down there. So that's the first thing we've got to sort out. Second thing is the shape of this is incorrect, but there's nothing I can do about that because I've got a wooden deck that's also the incorrect shape, so I'm a bit stuffed there. Thirdly, the shape here is wrong, and there should actually be a countersunk area here. I can show you on this picture here what I'm talking about. If you look at where the anchor is, you can see that the anchor is the shaft of the anchor is nestled between two sort of side walls, because there's actually a cutout for the anchor. So that, which also makes sense because it's going to be a guide for the chain as the chain's going up, so the chain's not flopping about. And then as the shaft comes up, that's going to come up nicely and find its location with the base of the anchor butting up against the edge. So this area here is completely the wrong shape and needs a lot of work to look right. And then the guide hoops are also missing, as they were on Bismarck. So we'll have to make some of those as well. So several issues there, but that's not where the issues end. You can see there's 3 holes here, and the deck also has 3 holes, which is a bit annoying because actually these holes are for an item. I can show you on a picture. Here we go. For these items here. Now, these are chain steadies, so it's basically a winder for steel rope that is put through the chain to lock it in place. The only difficulty is Scharnhorst only has one of these, and that one's at the stern. These shouldn't even be here. I cannot find any evidence that Scharnhorst ever had these on the front of her ship. So they're not in the anatomy of the ship. You can clearly see they are not there. They are not there. And on period photographs I've seen, and there's several of them, particularly taken in Norway, where you can see the distance from the end of the shank of the anchor to the bonnet, and there is nothing there. So they shouldn't exist. Therefore, the hole shouldn't exist. So I've got 3 spots, which is a little bit annoying. And I'm not sure, but I think I might be able to sort of hide them when we put this on, because they're sort of in, let's see, they're sort of in this area here. So I think we'll be able to paint over them, which will lessen the effect a little bit, I hope. But yeah, they shouldn't be there. So I'm not going to be putting them on, which will give me a more authentic look. Maybe we'll put some rope or something like that wound on it if needs be, if I think it looks bad. But yeah, so we have an insight here into what is going to go onto there. I also want to have a look at taking the step out of there. So we've got a cutout there, but it's quite harsh, and I think it should be it should have a sort of a gentle dip in, like put a radius into it so that the chain can dip in. The deck shape at the end here is wrong, and unfortunately MK1 have emulated wrong in their deck as well. So yeah, the issues just keep on coming. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at sorting the deck. So I need to install it, and to install it I need to make some modifications to it first. And one of the modifications that I need to do is with these 2 little pilot's platforms here, which look nothing like the actual ones. They've been moulded to look like wood, like a wood grid, like you might find on a period Napoleonic ship with a wooden grating, but actually it's a perforated steel platform with circles in rather than this lattice work. It's overly thick, so it doesn't look right at all, and it's the wrong shape, it's too big, and what have you. Now, on the real ship, these folded up and then could be lifted out and removed, because they're only really used when you're coming into dock or watching the anchor chain come up and making sure that it's not fouled on anything. So I'm going to remove them. I want to remove them carefully and keep hold of them in case I decide, although it's unlikely, that I'm going to use them again. I do have an idea that we might be able to use some photo etch for it, but failing that, I might make some plastic card ones, or I might just omit them, because in my mind I'd like to have the pyrovane tube extended from the bottom of the stem, and possibly have a pyrovane deployed. So if I can use some wire to show it in its deployed position, then I think that'll look fairly cool. Now, you wouldn't have pyrovanes deployed and the pilot's platforms out, so I'm gonna remove them. So that's a job. That's the first job to do. There is cutouts in the hull to accept these, which we'll need to fill, but you know, they shouldn't be there anyway, so it'd be nice to fill them and get the hull right. So I'm just going to whip them off with my razor saw. Okay, and then we can simply go in with a flat file and smooth those down. Being careful not to change the shape at all. Okay, so we got several things that we need to remove from here before we can do any shaping work. And I think the way to go is to take them off with a chisel to start with. So these triangular lumps at the front, these are the tie-down points for the locking chains for the anchor, and we've got some nice photo etch replacements, so we don't need to have these on. Now, if you're going to paint your deck rather than use the wooden deck, then what you need to do is remove them carefully and then just score them. It's very difficult to use the moulded in deck and make the alterations to the positions of this. However, you'd have to do some rescoring and what have you. So we keep this lump here. Those holes are good. So it's then the bonnets and the capstan location pins. So let's just take those off. So that's them gone, and we can then remove the bonnets. Sorry about any camera shake. I am looking into upgrading my camera, which means that I'll have a different way of mounting the camera. It's quite a chunky bit of plastic, this, to get through. There we go. First one off. I can ditch that. That's the second one off. Right, now then, the Mark 1 set has you put this deck on, and then has you put a second deck over the top. And you can see that they are correcting the shape here. The problem is you've got all sorts of lumps under there when you stick this down, and I think they might become evident, and you've got lumps in all sorts of different places, and that'll be even more accentuated by the fact that you're going to then put a second deck on top. So given that we've got to build this up and reshape it, I think what I want to do is take this top deck off. I'm not so worried about the bottom deck because we're going to be building this up anyway, but I want to take this off and smooth it out. So I'm going to start by roughing it out with a rotary tool. So let's get our wooden deck out of the way, and then we can get going with this. I've got it on the slowest speed, and like I say, we're just going to rough out to start with. And what you have to be careful of is putting too many gouges in. So it's light and keep it moving. If you put gouges in, then that's also going to show under the deck. There you go. Unfortunately, the speed of this does mean that the plastic gets melted, so we do have to go in and tidy it up a little bit. So I want to get this ultimately flat with this area here and take it down to the deck underneath the planking. Well, the kitchen is filled with the heady smell of melting plastic. So that's as much as I want to do. We've taken the worst of it off. The rest of it needs to be done with sanding pads. So let's do that. So we can go in with a fairly coarse sanding stick because all of this is getting covered up at the end of the day with wooden deck and what have you. So the only steel deck area will be this, and we're going to be building that up as well. So there's just this forward area here that we need to be a little bit careful of. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some masking tape over that. And then in theory, my sanding stick will hit the masking tape first and I will notice and I won't cause any damage. So This might take me a bit of time, and I think you get the idea, so I'll come back to you when I've finished doing this first bit of sanding. So I have taken it right down to almost smooth, really. Probably smooth enough for what we need to do, but I do want to just tidy it up a little bit. I've just given it a rinse and rinsed all the dust off and what have you. And you wouldn't believe it, but I have given this a quick hoover. I'll give it another one in a minute. So I'm going to go in with an 800 stick now and just make sure everything is sort of presentable. We don't need to go any further than 800. Leaving the water on the surface means that my dust is collected into the water, and then you sort of make like a sanding paste, like working with wet and dry. So that should give us a nice smooth finish that's actually beyond the 800 grit sort of level of smoothness. The hardest area is to get in between the skylights there, and I actually went in with a file to do that bit. I have managed to preserve this, but if you do damage it, it's not a problem because it's just a block. So a little bit of plastic rod, plastic strip, and you're sorted. Right, that is smooth enough for us to start building. So the first thing we want to do is stick the wooden deck on. Now, don't get all agitated and animated. I don't actually mean stick it on permanently. I mean with masking tape, so we can mark out some areas that we need to build up on. Okay, so that's our wooden deck taken back pretty much to steel deck. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It seems like a good time to take off the hatches for the on here on the skylights. So let's do that as well. So we'll go in with a 400 to start with and just take them down. To be very careful not to, in fact, I think I'm actually going to use my emery board because there is a little bit of sponginess in these and I don't want to round anything off. Okay, I am happy with that. What I like to do is just go around with a knife blade and back of the knife blade and just make sure that there's no fluffy bits of plastic hanging on. Right, that is good and ready for paint. It's also worth going around the bottom because you'd be surprised how your sanding dust can build up and wedge in. And we'll just get rid of it from these openings. Because if we don't, that dust can rear its ugly head and get stuck in the glue and all sorts of stuff. So, handy to get rid of them. Right, so that's our deck prepped pretty much. So let's get our wooden deck and place it on there. So the skylights are really handy for aligning our deck here, and having that there just keeps everything nice and straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tape it down at the edges. There we go. Hold that in place there, and just to be doubly sure, tape it down at the sides, although we should be all right now. Okay, so that's our wood deck on. So we can now go in with our pencil and mark out these areas where we're going to have to put some plastic deck in. I've actually got a little bit of the backing film there which isn't visible until you come to draw a pencil over it and it doesn't go onto the deck. There we go. So just going to draw around that because I've decided we need to raise that up a little bit as well, which is going to be a little bit problematic, but we'll come to that in a minute. So this here is where the step down goes. So the corner. So we're going to need to put one piece of plastic card to bring it level with this deck, and then we need another piece of plastic card on top to bring it level with this deck all the way around. Which might sound a bit difficult, but because we're reshaping this anyway, shouldn't be. Okay, right, so that's that drawn in. So I think that's everything marked out that we need marked out. So let's put the wooden deck somewhere safe. Okay, so we can see what we've got to do. Like I say, that should actually be a slightly squared cutout, but we can't do that because of the deck. Now, if I'm going to put some plastic card down, we're going to lose this. So we're probably going to have to put some plastic card on that as well and build that up. So I think that's possibly where we're going to start, actually, right here. Shape that, get that done, and then move backwards. So let's get some plastic card out and some liquid poly and get correct. Hi, and thanks for watching. You can support the channel by hitting the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you don't miss any content that I put out. Model Kit Stuff is a self-funded channel, and I don't do membership or Patreon or buy me a coffee, So if you'd like to further donate to the channel and ensure the cameras keep rolling and the content keeps coming, then you can consider making a donation through my PayPal. You'll find a link to that in the text below. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you soon.